Imagine a colony that looks as beautiful as a bed of roses from the outside. Its very name is Golab Colony, the Rose Colony. But every single person living inside this colony is a vicious criminal. Some are thieves, some are fraudsters, and some are murderers. It is a place where everyone hides a dark past. And the man who gathered all these criminals in one place is brutally murdered one night, right inside the colony, his skull smashed with a heavy object. Friends, you have heard of Agatha Christie's locked room mysteries, and you have seen Keigo Higashino's brilliant psychological thrillers. But today, the master detective whose world we are about to enter is no ordinary sleuth. He is India's greatest truth seeker, the legendary Byomkesh Bakshi. Welcome to Detective Equation, written by Sharadindu Bandyopadhyay. The masterpiece, Chiriyakhana, or the Menagerie, is a case where the suspense is incredibly deep, the suspects are numerous, and the method of murder is so cunning that solving it is beyond the grasp of an ordinary mind. Today, we will dive deep into this case file, unraveling its pages one by one. Keep your minds open, because until the very end, no one will be able to guess which beast is hiding in which cage of this menagerie. Chapter 1: The Zoo of Criminals. Our story begins at a massive, luxurious estate on the outskirts of Kolkata. This estate was built by a retired judge named Nishanath Sen. He was a peculiar man. Throughout his life, he sat in the judge's chair and sentenced criminals to prison. But after retirement, a strange sense of sympathy awakened within him. He built a large farmhouse and named it Golab Colony. He actively sought out social outcasts, ex-convicts, and tainted individuals to give them shelter. He wanted to give these criminals one last chance at redemption. But the villagers and locals did not call this place Golab Colony. They called it Chiriyakhana, the Menagerie, because in their eyes, Nishanath Sen had locked up different breeds of dangerous animals in one place. Let me introduce you to the bizarre animals of this menagerie. Nepal Gupta, an ex-professor, fired from his university on charges of leaking exam papers and forgery. Security End. Mukul, Nepal Gupta's innocent daughter. Rajdas, a man who committed a massive financial fraud in the past, but now spends his days chanting prayers, pretending to be a holy saint. He manages the colony's accounts. Muskil Mia, a dangerous thug, jailed multiple times for assault and stabbings. He is now the colony's motor mechanic and driver. Panugopal, a deaf and mute servant. Dr. Bhujangdhar Das, a highly capable doctor who also has a dark past. He runs the colony's dispensary. Banalakshmi, a stunningly beautiful and mysterious woman who assists the doctor in the dispensary and stays completely isolated. Living among them were Nishanath Sen himself, his beautiful young second wife Damayanti, and his young nephew Bijoy. This colony was a ticking time bomb, and its explosion was inevitable. Chapter 2: The Photograph and the Fear. One day, the doorbell rings at Byomkesh Bakshi's house on Harrison Road in Kolkata. Byomkesh and his friend Ajit are sitting in the drawing room. The door opens, and in walks the retired judge, Nishanath Sen. There was a strange terror on his face. The fear in his eyes was crystal clear. He sits across from Byomkesh, pulls out an old, torn photograph from a film magazine and places it on the table. The photo was of an exceptionally beautiful and glamorous Bengali film actress named Sunayana. Byomkesh asks, "Whose photograph is this, and why are you showing it to me?" Nishanath Sen narrates a story that instantly grabs Byomkesh's attention. Byomkesh Babu, this Sunayana, is no ordinary actress. A few years ago, she trapped a very wealthy jeweler in her web of beauty. She brutally murdered her wealthy lover, looted all his jewels and money, and vanished overnight. The police haven't been able to find her to this day. Studying the photo closely, Byomkesh asks, "So, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to find her?" Nishanath's voice trembles. "No, I don't want to find her. I am terrified that this murderous woman, Sunayana, is living right now in my Golab colony, disguised among my people. Someone has started blackmailing me. Someone is disrupting the balance of my colony. I want you to come and secretly investigate if there is a connection between the woman in this photo and any woman in my colony." Byomkesh accepts the case, but he never gets the chance to investigate Nishanath Sen alive. Exactly 3 days later, Byomkesh receives a phone call. It was Dr. Bhujangadar from the colony. His voice was panicked. "Byomkesh Babu, a tragedy has struck. Nishanath Sen has been murdered." Chapter 3. The first blood. Byomkesh and Ajit rushed to Golab colony. The scene was horrifying. The police had already arrived, but the police inspector deeply respected Byomkesh and allowed him to lead the investigation. Nishanath Sen's body was lying in his study room. He had been struck from behind with a heavy, blunt weapon with such immense force that his skull was completely shattered. Blood was scattered across the carpet. But there were 3 highly confusing elements in this murder. The weapon used for the murder was nowhere to be found in the room. The killer had taken it. The room was not locked from the inside, but the windows were wide open, meaning the killer could have entered from anywhere. The motive: absolutely no money, jewelry, or valuables were stolen from the room. This meant the murder wasn't a robbery, but a calculated hit, driven by a deep personal motive or to hide a dark secret. Byomkesh first communicated through gestures with the deaf and mute servant, Panugopal. Panugopal was the one who discovered the body. Through signs, Panugopal explained that around 10 p.m., he saw the light on in the master's study. When he peeked through the window, he saw his master lying in a pool of blood. As Byomkesh inspects the room and the body, he realizes that this colony truly is a menagerie. Every single person living here had a very strong motive to kill. Let's meet the suspects. Chapter 4. Motives everywhere. Suspect 1, Bijoy, the nephew. Byomkesh interrogates the nephew, Bijoy, first. Bijoy was furious. Byomkesh discovers that Bijoy was deeply in love with Mukul, the daughter of the ex-professor Nepal Gupta, and wanted to marry her. However, Nishanath Sen strictly opposed this marriage. He considered Nepal Gupta a fraud and threatened to disinherit Bijoy if he married a criminal's daughter. Motive, property, and love. Did Bijoy eliminate the only obstacle in his path? Suspect 2, Nepal Gupta, the bitter ex-professor. Nepal Gupta harbored pure venom against Nishanath Sen. He told Byomkesh Nishanath was no god. He wasn't doing us any favors. He only kept us criminals here to satisfy his own ego, to feel superior. Nepal knew Nishanath would never allow his daughter's marriage to Bijoy. Motive: to secure his daughter's future and exact revenge for his humiliation. Suspect 3, Brajdas, the fake saint. Brajdas walked in chanting prayers with a rosary in his hand. But Byomkesh had already checked the colony's account diaries. Unable to resist his old habits, Brajdas had embezzled funds from the colony, and Nishanath Sen had caught him red-handed. Nishanath was going to hand him over to the police the very next day. Motive: to save himself from going back to jail. Suspect 4, Damayanti, the young wife Damayanti was half Nishanath's age. When Byomkesh spoke to her, she was crying, but her eyes showed more fear than grief. Byomkesh's mind started racing. Was she having an affair within the colony? Did she conspire with her lover to remove her old, wealthy husband to gain freedom and fortune? Every animal in this menagerie had blood on its mouth. But then, Byomkesh finds a massive clue that turns the case upside down. Chapter 5. The Missing Weapon and the Setup. Byomkesh was troubled by what the murder weapon could be and where it vanished. Searching the premises, Byomkesh and the police reached the colony's motor garage, run by the criminal driver, Muskil Mia. Inside the garage, sitting among the car tools, was a heavy iron jack handle. Byomkesh observes it closely. The entire garage was covered in dust and oil, but that single jack handle was spotless. It had been thoroughly washed. The police immediately arrest Muskil Mia, thinking the case is closed. He had a criminal record, so he must have used his own tool to commit the murder. But Byomkesh stops the police. No, Inspector. This jack handle is definitely the murder weapon, but Muskil Mia is not the killer. Ajit asks, but why Byomkesh? Byomkesh smiles. Because Muskil Mia is a professional thug. If he committed the murder, he wouldn't wash the weapon and put it right back in his own shop where he'd be the first to get caught. The real killer is highly cunning. They deliberately took the handle from Muskil Mia's garage, committed the murder, washed it, and placed it right back to frame Muskil Mia. The killer created a setup to fool us. The killer tried to hit two birds with one stone, but they made one massive mistake. A mistake that triggered a dance of death in the colony. Chapter 6. The second murder. Just as Byomkesh was connecting the dots, another horrific murder takes place in the colony the very next day. And this time, the victim is the deaf and mute servant, Panugopal. Panugopal was killed exactly like Nishanath Sen. His skull too was smashed with a heavy object. But who would kill a deaf and mute servant? He had no enemies. This is where Byomkesh's truth-seeking vision cuts through the fog. He tells Ajit, Ajit, we were all fools. Panugopal was deaf and mute, but he was not blind. On the night of the murder, Panugopal saw the killer coming out of Nishanath Sen's room. Because he couldn't speak, he started secretly blackmailing the killer through gestures, demanding money to keep his silence. A killer who murdered Nishanath to hide a secret would never let a blackmailing servant live. That is why the killer caught Panugopal alone and silenced him forever. This second murder was the absolute proof for Byomkesh that the killer was not an outsider, but a respectable insider from the colony, someone who understood Panugopal's gestures and feared being exposed. Chapter 7. The Audio Diary and the Mysterious Woman. Byomkesh suddenly remembers why Nishanath came to him in the first place. Sunaina. Byomkesh brings the focus of the investigation back to the actress's photograph. There was only one suspicious woman in the colony, Banalakshmi. Banalakshmi worked at Dr. Bhujangadhar's dispensary. She was gorgeous and mysterious. But when Byomkesh compares Sunaina's photo with Banalakshmi, he is baffled. Banalakshmi looked absolutely nothing like the actress Sunaina. The face, the nose, the complexion, nothing matched. But Byomkesh had noticed something in Nishanath Sen's study room that changed the entire game: the missing dictaphone tape. On Nishanath Sen's table sat an old dictaphone voice recorder. Its wire was cut, and the audio spool inside was missing. Why would a killer ignore expensive jewelry, but steal and destroy an ordinary voice tape? Byomkesh explains the secret to Ajit. Ajit, Nishanath Sen had a habit. He never wrote his personal diary on paper. He recorded his voice on that dictaphone. On the night of the murder, Nishanath Sen had recorded a message stating, "I am absolutely certain that Banalakshmi is Sunayana, and a man in this colony is helping her. I will call the police tomorrow." If the killer hadn't stolen that tape, Nishanath Sen's own voice would have been the ultimate witness against them. The killer erased that audio diary forever. But how did Nishanath Sen suspect Banalakshmi when her face didn't match Sunayana's at all? A spark ignites in Byomkesh's mind. He runs a background check on Dr. Bhujangadhar's medical degree. He discovers that Dr. Bhujangadhar was no ordinary physician. He was a plastic surgeon. Chapter 8. The medical masterclass. Byomkesh breaks down the sheer logic of the entire game. Ajit, Sunayana murdered a rich man and had stolen jewels. She knew the police were hunting her across the country using her photograph. She needed a new identity, and who in this colony could give her a new face? Dr. Bhujangadhar. Sunayana came here as Banalakshmi. The doctor performed plastic surgery on her face, changing her cheeks, her nose, and her complexion. Astonished, Ajit asks, "But Byomkesh, if her face was completely changed, how did Nishanath Sen get suspicious?" Byomkesh smiles and says, "The voice. Ajit, the voice. Banalakshmi must have hummed a song in the dispensary. Plastic surgery can change your face, but it cannot change your vocal cords and the texture of your voice." Factorial Nishanath Sen heard that voice, and it immediately reminded him of Sunayana. But Byomkesh faced a massive hurdle. He had no solid physical proof to show the police that Banalakshmi was indeed Sunayana. Proving it after plastic surgery was almost impossible. Then, Byomkesh pulls out a medical anatomy book and reveals a truth that remains a masterstroke in detective history. Byomkesh says, "Ajit, any plastic surgeon in the world can change your eyes, your nose, your lips, but there is one part of the human body that is practically impossible to alter with plastic surgery without completely destroying it." Ajit asks, "What is it?" Byomkesh pulls out Sunayana's photograph and places a magnifying glass over it. The human ear. The cartilage and folds inside a human ear are as unique as fingerprints. You can change a face, but you cannot change those tiny, intricate folds of the ear. Byomkesh secretly observed Banalakshmi's ear. And ladies and gentlemen, the shape of Banalakshmi's ear was a 100% match with the ear in Sunayana's photograph. Banalakshmi was the murderous actress Sunayana. Chapter 9. The Grand Reveal. Byomkesh now understood the entire story and the motive behind both murders. He gathered all the suspects, Bijoy, Nepal Gupta, Brajadas, Damayanti, Banalakshmi, and Dr. Bhujangadhar in the drawing room. There was a terrifying silence in the room. Byomkesh begins to speak. "You all think your motives were the greatest. Bijoy's property, Brajadas's fraud, Nepal Gupta's ego. But no." Byomkesh turns and looks directly into Dr. Bhujangadhar's eyes. "The murder in this colony was committed by the man we all viewed as a savior, a doctor." Everyone is stunned. Sweat begins to form on Dr. Bhujangadhar's face. Byomkesh continues, "Bhujangadhar, you changed the face of this murderous woman Sunayana. You thought by giving shelter to a killer, you could rule over her stolen jewels and money. Banalakshmi was trapped by your blackmail. But when Nishanath Sen grew suspicious after hearing her voice, he recorded his suspicion in his audio diary. You realized that if Nishanath remained alive, both you and Banalakshmi would hang from the gallows." Byomkesh recreates the entire crime scene. That night, You picked up the jack handle from Muskelmia's garage. You entered Nishanat's room through the window. You smashed his skull, extracted the audio tape, and burned it. You washed the handle and put it back in the garage to frame Muskelmia. You thought your master plan was a success, but your luck ran out. Panugopal saw you walking out of that room. When Panugopal started blackmailing you, the demon inside you woke up again, and you slaughtered that innocent deaf servant. But you forgot that you weren't dealing with just the police. You were dealing with the truth seeker, Byomkesh Bakshi. Dr. Bhujangadhar realized his game was completely over. He suddenly pulled a vial of poison from his pocket and tried to drink it, but the police pounced from behind and pinned him down. Annalakshmi, who was actually Sunayana, collapsed on the floor in tears. She had committed murder, and even advanced science like plastic surgery couldn't hide her sins. Chapter 10. The true meaning of the Menagerie. The police arrested Dr. Bhujangadhar and Banalakshmi. The rest of the suspects breathed a sigh of relief. Bijoy and Mukul were reunited. The animals Nishanat Sen had sheltered were not truly animals, just lost souls who finally got a chance to reform. The real monsters were the ones roaming around wearing the masks of a respectable doctor and an innocent woman. Byomkesh returns to Kolkata with Ajit. On the way, Ajit says to him, Byomkesh, Nishanat Sen really did build a menagerie. Every person there resembled some kind of wild animal. Byomkesh takes a deep breath, lights a cigarette, and delivers a line that reveals the ultimate truth of human psychology. Ajit, the menagerie doesn't just exist in Golap colony. The menagerie is this entire world. There is a beast hidden inside all of us. Inside some, it is the wolf of greed. Inside others, the lion of rage, or the snake of deceit. The only difference is, some people learn to keep the beast inside them locked in a cage, while for others, the beast breaks the cage and comes out. And to stop it, you need a hunter. Friends, Sharadindu Bandyopadhyay's masterpiece is not just a murder mystery, but a massive mirror reflecting human psychology. A person can change their identity, they can change their face, but they can never change the sins they committed or the fingerprints on their ears. Which deduction in this case blew your mind the most? Panugopal's blackmail twist, the secret of the audio diary, or catching the killer through ear cartilage? Let me know in the comments below. If you loved this deep and detailed investigation by Detective Equation, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more mind-blowing detective stories. See you in the next mystery. Until then, learn to recognize the beasts around you.